What's going on, everybody? We are here, unfortunately, but kind of fortunately. I kind of get excited this time of year. It's the end of the golf season, which means, you know what? We're going to have to work on our games and kind of recap it. And, that's exciting. So I'm going to go through how I go through this process on my own game. Hopefully, you'll be able to apply this to your process, your improvement, and I think this really will help. What's going on, everybody? Scott Oaken coming at you. We're here. We're going through and spending some time today going through our games. So had a couple of weeks here where I've been busy with, actually got out to play a little bit at Valhalla and was fortunate enough to do that. I'll talk more about that in an upcoming video, and played somewhere at French Lick and all that. And so we're kind of wrapping up the season now, and it's time to kind of go through and take a look at what's going on with the season and everything that's going on. So we'll go through that process, and I'm going to show you what I use to do that and how I plan to use my technology that I've invested in to help my own game. This is also what I do with my students that I work with. We do this process, and I think it's really important to take some time, sit down, and just look at everything, because you might find, hey, I did some stuff really well, and that's exciting. And you might find, hey, I really do need to improve that part of my game, and you'll be working on the right things as you go through to do that. Okay, so let's dive into my season this year. So the first thing that you want to look at is you got to look at your goals and what you were trying to do. So for me, I was trying to play better competitively, okay? And so I played more tournaments this year. I played some good, some not so good. I worked on getting some things going in my game that I was trying, and you know what? I'm kind of happy. The bad part that happened with it is the last two events of my season, where I was trying to make it to our top of players of the year kind of tournament, those got rained out. And so my plan, where at the start of the year I kind of was like, all right, I'm going to work on some things and really work on those things, and I don't care necessarily what I shoot, but I'm going to keep practicing these things. That might have backfired a little bit just because we ran out of time, where I could have just kind of band-aided it and said, hey, I'm not gonna try to fix it, but I can get by. But ultimately that's not what I want to do. So I feel like in the future I'm going to be set up a little bit more. So let's talk a little bit about that. So I've talked about a little bit of my process before. I use an app called Spider Golf. That's what I use for stat tracking. There's obviously hundreds, if not thousands, of these that you can use. I use the Grint for my handicap as well. And they do stats and stuff like that on there. So you can see this is my year that I had, okay? And so I averaged right around 78, 77, 78. And again, these are in tournament conditions. I think the longest course I played was 7,300 yards. So that was definitely a challenge. Played another one at 7,100. That was at French Lick at the Ross course. The 7,300 was at Valhalla, actually. So that was recently. A lot of courses around that, I would say 6,800 was kind of probably my normal distance. And, played some courses where the greens were a lot faster than I'm used to. One in particular we played at North Shore Country Club. The greens were running about 13. That's a lot for me. And, I actually didn't handle them that bad, but from a short game standpoint, I didn't do very well. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. So, when I go through my stats, I can go through a bunch of different things, as we go. You can see, again, these are kind of tournaments that we had. Lowest score was a 72, which I like. Had an 85 in there. Again, that was at North Shore, where I essentially said, hey, I'm going to chip. And I chipped probably 6 or 7 balls into bunkers. Because I said, I'm going to learn this. I could have played it differently. I honestly could have putted it onto the green. But I just said, hey, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to learn how to do this. And if I have to sacrifice the score of this round, then I'll do that to just get better. So that's what we did. So that stinks to have that round. But you know what? I want to get better, like I said. We'll go through some of kind of the easy stuff here. You can see here we have a rating of kind of my game. My long game from fairways and approach shots from like 200 plus and, even like 150 plus was easily the strongest part of my game. You can see as I got closer to the green, kind of the weakest part of my game. Putting was okay. Could be better, I think, but I mean, it's going to be a clear cut, like short game is where I needed to work on it, right? And that's where we can get into a few more stats if we kind of go through just some of that as we look at it. Around the green, you could see I was losing 2.5 shots on average. And I will say this, my putting 2.5 as well. I will say this, some of the rounds I had early were a lot worse on the putting, especially early in the year when the greens weren't great. So that definitely, I had a lot more like even rounds later. So I got better with that. My approaches and off the tee, that got better as well later on. I actually switched drivers throughout the year. So if I were to switch this about halfway through the year, my driving actually got really good after I made a driver switch. And again, approaches were pretty good. This is all to a +3 handicap, by the way. So that's pretty good. But again, around the greens, 2.5. And at times I've had rounds that it was 7 to 8 shots lost. So that really stuck out as something that I would need to kind of work on. You can see it as we kind of work down the shots. It's like, all right in there at less than 30 yards as we're kind of going through all the shot distances here. -2.5. It's all within 30 yards. So pretty clear. I need to work on that. Now, another thing that I did that I thought really helped, and again, this kind of came through after a driver switch, and I think this was kind of a reason I struggled with the driver a little bit off at the start, was I worked hard on speed, and that was the stack system, right? One of my goals was I needed to get the ball out there longer. And so I was trying to get my distance up, so I worked with the stack system all last year. I just redid my stack, kind of getting into this off season, seeing where I'm at. I'm currently at like 298, right around there for my potential distance. And I was probably in the low 290s all season with my in-game, swing, my in-round swing. I started off, when I started doing stack, I was in like 270. So it definitely worked. It helped me out a ton, but definitely something I need to watch as I'm going forward, as I would love to get it over 3. So I would love to keep that going. I also will say in about April and May, I switched to using the gravity fit. That has been the best addition to my game. From that point on, hitting the ball and striking the ball, I loved it. Probably one of my better summers striking the golf ball, as far as just making good contact, stuff like that. So that was another change that I made. And, let's just bring up the stats as we go through. I'm going to bring it in. And let's just say if I started it in June instead, I want to look at it and say, what are our categories? You can see off the tee got even a little bit better, and then strokes gained around the green probably stayed the worst. And now let's go even a little later. Let's just go into August. Okay, you can see still same scoring. Let's go to our strokes gained. Okay, you can see it got slightly better, about a half a shot with off the tee, around the, all that, but the around the green did not get much better as we go. And the putting still was not great either there. We played again a couple of 13, 14 stimps, didn't putt great. So I definitely need to be working on putting and short game, which we can do. I will be doing that. And then from there, we need to take a look at, all right, how can I help maybe get just a little bit more control off the tee, just a touch, and continue to get that speed. Well, the speed's going to be easy. That's going to be more stack system. We're also going to be working out, getting some stuff done. I've got some programs I'm going to be doing, but we'll just keep going with adding speed. Now, as far as can I improve my long game? Well, of course we can. So how am I going to do that? Well, that's where I'm going to go to. I'm actually going to take a look here at my swing, and this is where I like to analyze and take a look at it very thoroughly with numbers. So that's where something like Sportsbox 3D is really helping me out. All right, so taking a look at my swing, a couple of things that I notice, right? So, I can help myself get a little bit more distance in my swing. You might have seen me talk about it with my numbers as far as my flight scope goes. My attack angle is not good enough, in my opinion, so I kind of don't compress the ball a little bit. And then I think it also affects my ability to kind of rotate through the ball, which would help keep the club face just a little bit more stable. And so one of those things that I look at is, again, if we look at our numbers here, I've got a chest bend at the top of the swing is 17 degrees. So what that means is, as I'm turning back, I'm actually leaning away from the target. I'm bending forward, but away from the target as I go. And a good ball striker is going to be closer to zero there. So what that means is I've got to get back and get more leaning onto the side. So right off the bat, I can kind of go through the numbers and say, all right, hey, that's something I need to work on. And that would limit, by doing that, that would actually limit my ability to turn my body. So you can look at my turn numbers up at the top. My chest turn's only 79, my pelvis turn's 35. We'd want to see those closer to 90 and 45. Now, I've got a good X factor, okay? I've got some good separation between my upper and lower body, but it might be tough for me to deliver the club the way I want to. And also, I'm going to be working pretty hard from a pretty short distance. You know, I'm not getting all the way back in my backswing, and it's going to be difficult to generate power without just having to put absolutely everything I've got into it. So that's going to be one of the big areas that I can work on as far as a long game goes. Now, ironically enough, this is the same thing I see when I do my short game. As I've started to analyze my short game, it's like, hey, I'm actually coming in a little bit behind the ball. Like I'm trying not to take too big of a divot. I'm trying to be nice and shallow, but I'm actually too shallow. And that means I've got to work on my body positioning to get back through the ball so I can make good contact. So I'm actually going to get the chance to work on and kind of improve all areas of my game by just working on how my body works, especially at that top, so I can get through the ball a little bit better. So that's going to be a big part of my plan. It is in my goals for this winter. I always want to work on my swing first, okay, because this is the time to make changes to your swing. I want to be ready to go by the end of the winter season starting. I want to be able to feel like I'm getting a good feel for things. I just want to be working on adapting it to the outside conditions. That's all. The other thing is I need to work on speed, right? That's the second thing. I want to continue to work on getting speed. So for me, it's going to be first feeling these body motions in both the full swing and the short game. It's also going to be, hey, what is my speed doing as we go? Okay, and making sure that those are getting where I want it to. From there, once I get those things dialed in, I need to be paying attention to one, am I actually gaining control? Then I'm going to start looking at my numbers on my flight scope. Are my club path numbers where I want them? Are my face angle numbers where they want? And are they within an acceptable range where I want them to be? And then from there, it's learning everything I can while we're indoors about my game. How far do I hit them? How much do I feel like I can juice it up? How much can I take off? How do I launch it? Everything that I can do, I will try to put into this. So I'm trying to build my confidence that, hey, I am getting this. I'm getting myself dialed in and, going through all this. So I think if you start with this process, if you've been keeping notes, if you've been tracking your game, it's pretty simple. And then you can use some of the tools that are available and you can get to a very good plan within maybe an hour, maybe a couple of minutes. It might not take you that long to say, you know what, this is what I'm going to work on. And then the key is having a way to be able to track this. All right. When I'm working on my speed, obviously I can tell how fast I'm swinging it. That's how I can track it. When I'm working on my swing, I've identified my numbers that need to get better. I can keep making swings and just keep comparing it, keep taking videos and keep looking at it on the app and seeing where I'm at, see if I'm getting better. From there, I can then look at, all right, how are my numbers comparing as far as the data on my launch monitor, all of that. And then we have a great process feeling like we're getting better. Once we get through that stuff, we can work on a few more things to really take our game to the golf course. But That's where I'm starting. Based on what I see in my numbers, that's what I want to work on. Obviously, we'll be putting too on our perfect practice mat and all that stuff. We'll be working on that, but I think I'm going to be working a lot more when I get outside, working on maybe some green reading. I feel like that's going to be a big hole in my game. And then also just working on some shorter putts, feeling more and more confident with those. So that's how I'm going to make my plan. That's how I do it. Those are the tools I use to come up with it. I feel good about it. I feel confident in it. I feel like I've got a good reason to work on this stuff all winter. So I feel confident I'm going to be better by the time the next season rolls around. So if you have any questions about it, please comment down below. If you want to check out any of this stuff, I'm linking everything down below, including some of our programs online that we do that uses this technology, or just some of our online courses that you might be interested in. Make sure you check those out in the description below. And as always, click that subscribe button. We got more coming up. How to use your technology to get better, some on-course stuff. We'll have all that coming up. So make sure you click that subscribe button if you're not a subscriber already. And we'll see you in the next video. Peace.